Alright, so bad news is I wasn't able to record any of my own gameplay while on vacation, but other people recorded high level matches, so we're just going to do what all great content creators do and steal. What you're watching in the background here is Fab Potemkin versus Goichi's Ino, and this is on Zeus's channel. I'm going to leave the link down below, but you can also see his little watermark at the bottom there. Anyways, without further ado, let's talk about my Beta 2 experience. And as far as I'd say, I think the game feels good, but it's a little incomplete. This could be my character choice. I played Giovanna pretty much both of the betas completely. But I feel very limited on what I can do combo-wise, and I think that's by design. I think they're trying to reach casuals, and I think they want to make it to where if a casual hops on the game and wants to learn one bread and butter and maybe a corner combo, they can do that and then hop into the game. But what I'm really worried about is how long the discovery phase of the game will last and how much depth can be pulled out of it. I think the problem is a lot of people had with Granblue is, besides the netcode, was how simple it was after the first week. You could basically pick up any character, learn their 2 to 3 combos, probably one is a mid-screen, one's a corner, and then one's an anti-air combo, and you're pretty proficient at the character after that. However, when I tried learning a game like Rev 2, there's just so many combos and niche things about your character that you have to learn, where you're constantly learning new things all the time. But I did feel like this was a lot, right? I'm a person who has already played fighting games, and even for me, it was a lot, right? So I couldn't even imagine a casual trying to pick up something like Rev 2 and then getting completely overwhelmed. I think the main thing that will make or break the lifespan of the game, besides the netcode, because the netcode's great, right? There's no complaints there, is how they balance the depth to simplicity ratio on most of the characters. Now, I've not played Guilty Gear like a ton, right? I've played a little bit of Rev 2, a little bit of Plus R, but what I really loved about those two games was how much you can lab out of it. I'm not a lab monster by any means, but when I started playing Johnny in Rev 2, practicing his combos in training mode was some of the most fun I've had, right? I thought that was a really cool and a really big drawing point for me to Rev 2 is that you can lab things for hours and hours and have a great time by yourself. Because of how much variance there is in your character's combos and your character's structure of their different mechanics, right? A lot of characters in the game have a lot of mechanics that are unique to them, like Johnny's coin, like Ramlethal's swords, that aren't really the same in the new game, but I think that's okay. I think it's okay to simplify things like that. If they're really committing to hitting a new market of people who don't really play fighting games or people who don't want such a mechanically intensive game. I saw on Twitter someone say, if you play the Stride Beta and you don't compare it to any other Guilty Gear, it's a decent game, right? And I agree with that. I think that take Stride for what it is and don't compare it to the previous games that were very much more difficult. I think it's still a great game, and I think it has a lot of potential. Talk a little bit about the demographic for this game. I think ArcSys is trying to reach new players, and I think they're actually doing a great job at that. Right now, they're reaching their target audience of new players because most posts on the Guilty Gear subreddit I'm seeing are like new players excited for the game to come out, or excited about the characters which they haven't seen before, or like stuff that's just really cool to see. It's really cool to see people who are coming from other games and other genres having a great time with the beta and excited for the game to come out. What's really going to be a test is how long ArcSys can keep those casuals engaged, because I think they're losing a lot of their diehard fan base, which isn't as large as something like Street Fighter, so I think they can afford to shed a few players and gain some new ones. But they're really doubling down on the simplification of the game, I feel like. They're really doubling down on making the game casual friendly, and they need to be able to retain those players, because if they can't, then the game's it's not gonna have the new players, it's not gonna have the old players, and then it's gonna die out in a couple months. Some things it has going for it that is probably gonna keep people interested for a while is the character design. All the visual aspects are amazing, the music is great. The main menu UI still kind of looks like a mobile game to me. And the little post-match graph is pretty useless, right? It shows like your heart stat or your courage or whatever. I'd like to see it show like, I don't know, something useful, right? Some useful data. Maybe something like what attack you got hit by most, or how to block something that you kept getting hit by. I'm not really sure. I just think any stat is better than the heart stat or like your courage or something. Something that doesn't really mean anything. As far as the big thing that everybody's talking about being the air movement, where it feels kind of sluggish and slow, I don't play anime games, right? I don't traditionally play anime games, and even I can feel that. It does feel a little slow. It feels a little off from the first beta as well. Games with air dashes that I've played are like DBFZ and then the other Guilty Gears, right? So that's what I'm referencing to. I feel like it's just a little bit slower, and I feel like it's not as good, right? I like the first beta. I think in the first beta how the air movement was fine. It's just the anti-airs needed to be changed, which they changed. So in my opinion, they kind of fixed something that wasn't broken with the speed of the air dashes and how things work in the air. However, like I said, in that aspect of the game, air movement and air combat, if you will, I'm not really an expert, so if I'm wrong there, I'm wrong and I'm sorry. Let's talk about the lobby a little bit. The lobby system does feel kind of improved with the little battle stations, but overall I think I just prefer the traditional lobbies in the other Arc Sys games. I did have a few problems with the battle stations still. When I would queue up, like somebody would be queuing up as I was, and then it would pop them in and then pop me out. Or like my game would freeze when I ranked up. I don't know if that happened to anybody, but when it kicks you out of the set to rank you up, my game would just freeze, like full stop. I'd have to crash the game and then reopen it. I think they're moving in the right direction with the little battle stations, but I just would rather have like a normal lobby. It's like a very seamless thing that I don't want to have to think about very much. The whole point of the lobby is to just get me in the match, right, and make it as unnoticeable as possible. I just want to join a lobby, get into a game, and play the game. It's not like they needed to have the little Habbo Hotel, have me make a character, and have to like interact with people and stuff. Much rather just have a list of names and press start and we get into the game. Have the little lobby back from Rev 2 where you just walk in and then you sit down at the tiny little cabinet and somebody sits down next to you, and it works very well. Definitely tried to do something new and tried to fix something that wasn't really a problem, but I think it's way too far along in development for them to scrap it completely, so they're doubling down and trying to make the best of it. They've implemented changes from the survey and from social media, but they have to know that people don't like this lobby. And the only reason they're keeping it in, I think, is because it's too far gone. Like, it'd be way too much for them to scrap it and make something completely new. Enough about the lobby. Let's talk a little bit about the rank system. I think the rank system is interesting, and I think they wanted to have an incentive for people to climb the ranks rather than those little, like, colored squares that they have in DBFZ and other Arc Sys games that don't really matter. But besides the game being in a beta, the rank still doesn't matter because you can get up to the next floor off of a player who's lower than you, and it happened and just happened to connect to your floor, right? So for example, I went from floor 9 from floor 8 after beating a floor 6 player who was just connected to the floor, the 8th floor, right? He just joined the 8th floor. And I think in the long term, this is going to lead to rank inflation. A lot of players who are not the right skill level for their ranks, making it to the same square or like the same rank as higher level players. This basically makes it the square system all over again, where you can have like 2 pink squares who are completely different skill level, and making the rank once again obsolete. This might not sound like a big deal if you play fighting games, and rank doesn't really mean much to most people in fighting games. It's usually like tourney results and other accomplishments outside of the game. But if you're targeting a new audience who's coming from games like League of Legends, for example, where there's a highly structured rank system that actually means something to players, then it's going to seem kind of underwhelming for them. Anyways, with all that said, I still think the game is going to be fun. I'm still going to buy it. I know some people cancel their pre-orders and stuff. They feel like the game is unfinished. Which I can agree with to an extent. I think the game is a little unfinished, and I think they're going to end up releasing it and then patching it into a full game, which tends to kind of like be a trend lately, it feels like, is releasing games that are kind of underwhelming or kind of lacking in some regard, and then just releasing patches over the coming months to patch it into a full game. And I just don't feel like that's the right approach, because I feel like it's way harder to recover from a bad launch than it is recover from delaying the game a little longer. I think we saw that in action with Cyberpunk, right? That game was in development for 8 years supposedly, and then it came out to lukewarm reception and then really bad reception when people started finding the bugs and finding all the bad stuff about it. Now a game that was supposed to be, you know, the game of the decade, right? It was supposed to be an amazing game. Everybody was going to play it forever. Now has like 2,000 views on Twitch. Little to no media about it. On the flip side, there was No Man's Sky, which was hyped up beyond belief and then came out to, again, a lukewarm reception. But the developers sort of put their heads down and just put out patch after patch until the game sort of has a decent player base now, and a lot of people still play it. What both of those games suffered from was a bunch of overhype and pressure from their community and maybe their publisher to release it early and to patch it into existence. I think those are two very extreme cases of very large games that needed a lot of fixing. I don't think Strive needs that much fixing, but if it gets delayed one more time, I just wouldn't be surprised. I think that's it for me today. If you did get to this part of the video, if you got all the way to the end, leave me a comment, let me know what you thought, and consider subscribing if you aren't already.